GPS.
GPS, where are you from?
Here.
Here? GPS. Any other guesses? No? Well, I know someone from Australia is here. When I showed this picture 3 weeks ago in Australia, you know what they said? Everyone said it's Viagra. I'm not joking, seriously.
Okay, gotta take a picture.
I'm sure I showed them this next picture. Now this is GPS. Okay. And then I showed them another one. They said, okay, now it's really GPS. But actually people read images differently, have different interpretations. So when I show this picture among researchers or in education, people think I was making fun of America's education reform. Saying we don't know really which direction we're going. We don't know. It's, you got Bush, you got Clinton, we pick goals 2000, we pick Common Core standards, we pick anything, right? Just pick something. But it's interesting, think it like that. I feel GPS is a very interesting metaphor for us to think about education. It's a great technology, but you got to know where you're going with it. Right? That's important. If you don't know where you're going with it, it's like education reform. We're trying to make our schools so effective and our teachers so effective, but effectively doing what? That's what a question we need to all have to ask. What really matters? Because if you're not careful, like I think education reform in the US and many other countries has practically not arrived here. It's Now, the importance of destination is absolutely important. Because if we don't know, really, I think because any destination, any definition you set is going to drive what you do. So I'm sure you all know this story. You know where this is? That's another test, okay, for you guys.
Easter Island.
Easter Island. I got some not only inspiring, interesting, but smart audience too. All right, you know. But how do you know who built this? Gotcha, huh? I don't know either, by the way, okay.
The indigenous people.
The indigenous people, you're really smart, okay. So, now this is a very interesting story to tell, to think about the importance of goals and selection. This is, of course, Easter Island. One version, at least, of what happened there was that there was once a prosperous civilization. But somehow one day people got into this idea of no stones left behind. What they were thinking about is to say, okay, they got into this race. This race, not to the top, but race to build the biggest, giant, most beautiful, handsome stone heads. And because they believe that's an indication of the power of your family, of your tribe, as well as indication of your future prosperity. So every family, every tribe on this island send their people to carve the stones, and they have to cut down the trees to transport this to a right place, in front of the house to erect the stones. So naturally, they neglected farming, taking care of their animals, basically anything else that's considered not important. Everybody was racing to build the best giant stone heads. And of course that caused the collapse. This is from Jared Diamond's book, The Collapse. And talk about how civilizations seldom die from murder, they often die by suicide. That's how we do it. If you choose the wrong goal to measure yourself, if you choose the wrong objective to go after, no matter how good, how efficient you are not going to get where you want to go. Actually, the more effective you are, the more efficient you are much more likely to go to self-destruction. So if you think that's a metaphor, when we're building the best GPS, building the biggest stone heads, is that getting us anywhere? So think about the US education reform, not only US, actually, as far as I know, this is happening in England, with the new national curriculum, Australia, and the NAPLAN test, and of course, New Zealand, you're doing all this testing idea. So if you look, just think about the US. There's some major initiatives happening to us. Common Core, yesterday I was going across the street, not going to sell the Common Core, right? By the way, I have to tell you, I would love the Common Core standards if they are not common or core. I mean, it's a great thing. It's not, it's not nothing. I love standards. Think about nets is a great stuff, but not common, not core. And we still don't know how to figure out. Right? I think right now we are lost in terms of what's the purpose of education. Where are we going with this? I mean, if you look at this, I mean, we are in the US pushing for the idea of a race to the top. Really, race to the top of what? I haven't figured out this race to the top of what. Sometimes, I actually would like to have some children left behind. It's a good idea, right? I mean, if you race all of them to the top, you push them to the cliff, and that's no child left behind. That's what But fundamentally, there's 3 major initiatives, plus any other standards movement. They're all trying to apply one thing to measure the goal, the purpose, the quality of students, of teachers, and of schools, and of education systems. That is, we call them the new guard in education, we call this test scores. Everyone's going to build up on their test scores. Everyone's going to go after that. In the US, look at the current movement of trying to tie test scores to teacher evaluation, to student evaluation, to a future. And actually, I would say this, a lot of technology has been trying to prove we can improve test scores. We have lost almost a decade of opportunities to explore truly the power of technology by trying to subject technology as a tool to improve test scores. And many of you as educators in the audience, you know this. Even though you know your children are learning something useful, powerful, you still have to prove at least they are not going to damage your test scores. Technology today, when I say a lot of products out there, is being used to enslave students and teachers so they can produce better scores, not to liberate them. Technology today is used to drive big data systems as if we know everything, to measure your students step by step, That's not the right way to do it. So today what I'm going to try to prove to you from more global perspectives is test scores may just be like the giant stone heads. They look beautiful, they look nice, they're seductive, but they don't really lead to real education, what we need. Before I move on, so I want to give you another, you can finish this quote yourself. This is from Albert Einstein. Everyone is a genius. If you judge a fish by its ability to climb a tree, it will live its whole life believing it's stupid. That's it. That's how we judge it. If technology is to be judged by your ability to raise test scores, I've been in technology research for a long time. I'm always trying to prove, yes, I can do Common Core. You shouldn't have to do that. You shouldn't have this technology can do that, because you cannot judge technology by its ability to climb the tree. Same thing, Otherwise, Google, if you judge Google by its ability to cook coffee, that would be a bad Google, right? So now, this is, if you want, some of you are following me already. The slides I put here will be on my website. You can take it down. By the way, that website is the only website you will need besides ISTE, okay? In your life. I gotta be nice to ISTE folks. And also, I want to tell you that I create a lot more slides than I normally use. Not because I like them, because I'm accountable for making the number of slides. Usually I'm paid by the number of slides I make, so that's what I do. You create more. I'm going to skip some, maybe not. So some of the talk data today were based on my last book, and that was published by ISTE a few years ago. But I'm so happy to announce today, my book, new book's released today, actually, right now. Today it's by Cohen. It's called World Class Learners, and about educating creative and entrepreneur students. So the data has come from these 2 books. But now I'm going to start by asking several questions. The first question is that why did not China have a big party? Many of you think I'm talking about the Communist Party, which is not, which is huge. Actually, I'm not talking about that party. I'm talking about a party to celebrate this outstanding achievement. If you remember this, a few years ago, when the PISA was released, 2009 PISA, everyone knows what a PISA is, right? No, but not everyone. Is that the city is not the food, not pizza, okay. It's the largest international academic horse race. It's a test of 15-year-olds in 3 areas. And it's by OECD, started about a decade ago. Now it runs every 3 years. This round is happening right now. I think some 70 countries are doing this. It's become the gold standard of education, global. Everybody uses. So when people talk about PISA, it's like the best measurement of our nation's educational quality. It's basically like the Stoneheads for Easter Island. So think about that. That's called a PISA. So the data was released last round. China's Shanghai participated for the first time. And it took #1 in all 3 categories. So at that time, President Obama said this is the Sputnik moment of our generation. The Chinese kids from Shanghai are going to bomb us with math scores. Oh, he didn't say that part, he said the first part, okay. And Arnie Duncan, our Secretary of Education, said this is absolutely a wake-up call. We got to act. And actually, this is, when China participated in this one, they replaced Finland. Finland used to be doing very well. You see, Finland is dropping on this list. And I was in Australia, people say, you should be so sick of Finland now. Everybody talks about Finland, it's perfect education. Of course it's perfect because it's boring, right? It's a place. Now, if you think about this system, lots of people are trying to understand, how did these countries do so well? They're all trying to learn. They're trying to understand, from teachers, to curriculum, to gateways, to assessments, to everything. They're trying to understand. I mean, recently, OECD came up with a report. I think Thomas Friedman actually wrote about it in the New York Times. It's talk about countries have a lot of natural resources, do not do very well on the PISA because they don't have to learn, they don't have to educate. So the side examples of it is, Australia and Canada are the exception. You guys have natural resources, but you're smart enough to reinvest. That's the idea, okay? America, basically, if you follow that suggestion, we should, Texans, you guys have to move away. You got too much oil there. You can't do those things. That's why you only improve your scores, move to Finland, okay? But in my analysis, actually, if you look at these top 5 countries, if you take Finland out, what's in common across them? Asian countries. So it has nothing to do with natural resources, it has to do with what you eat with. It's chopsticks. If you use chopsticks, chopsticks are very hard, challenging cognitive task. You have 2 sticks. Can you handle a Big Mac with 2 sticks? Or soup. That's why the Asians are so smart and score so well on this thing. I think for any country you want to improve, we should mandate chopstick usage. That's all. Now, seriously, China has become the country of admiration. China now is viewed to be the cleverest country in the world by BBC. And there's a book published by Harvard Education Press. If you look inside, it's by Mark Tucker from the NCEE, the National Center for Education and Economy. And there's a lot of very well-known writers in this book. When I look at this book, I said, America is really not doing very well. Because now we have lowered our national goal to surpass Shanghai. I mean, there's nothing to surpass other than test scores. As an immigrant to the US, this is really disappointing. I was lured here by bigger dreams like John F. Kennedy. He said, let's send someone to the moon. I couldn't even put up with George Bush's dream, said, let's read. I mean, if you remember that time in when George Bush gave me one of the State of the Union addresses, let's make sure every 3rd grader can read. Reading is tough for him, but shouldn't be hard for everybody. Now, think about this. I think reading literacy is absolutely essential, but should never become a national goal. It should be the floor, not the ceiling. Now we're getting worse. We want to surpass Shanghai. This is getting even crazy. Right? Think about this thing. So, now, by the way, I want to say this. America is not only crazy country. Australia has its own share as well. Oh, you can't say that. Okay, think about this. The Grant Institute, based in Melbourne, non-profit organization. Actually, I know this people. I'm friends with them, and I kind of, okay with it. But they came up with this crazy assessment. So they came back with a big report, was floating all over the Australian media, right? Whether Murdoch doesn't have to phone hack it to find out this is it. He finds this thing. And they find out what? Australian kids are 2 years behind students in Shanghai. That's serious. If you're 15, 2 years behind, that's bad education considered, right? So that's what they think we got to learn from Shanghai. And I will tell you, in the US, China has become this top education country, top everything country. Anyone from Pennsylvania here? Good. Remember you had who's the last governor? Randall, right? Ed Randall, right? Remember about 3 or 4 years ago, there was a football game scheduled in Philadelphia. Because of winter storm, they had to cancel the game. And your governor was very unhappy. He went on radio and he had this to say in public. So we've become a nation of pussies. The Chinese are kicking our butt in everything. If this was in China, do you think the Chinese would have cut off the heat? People would have been marching down to the stadium, they would have walked and they would have been doing catwalks. I have no idea how China got into this game. But also actually, China is an idol also for the England. The new Secretary of Education in England, Michael Gove, wrote in the Telegraph, said, I'm happy to confess that I'd like us to implement a cultural revolution, just like the one they had in China. I have no idea your Secretary of Education know what the cultural revolution was. If he knew it was 10 years of turmoil to destroy education, that's problematic. That means England is facing really big trouble. If he didn't know, it's also scary because he had no idea what it was as Secretary of Education. And he wanted, like Chairman Mao, we embarked on a long march to reform our education system. So you see all this countries trying to admire China. And China is a country who will not miss any opportunity to celebrate its global achievement. But China this time, when the PISA was released, it did not celebrate at all. If you read any of the readings, when they talk about the PISA, they're not happy actually. And why? That's why did not China celebrate? I think China did not celebrate because they were looking for different talents. Premier Wen Jiabao said, we want Steve Jobs. Why can't we have Steve Jobs? And then, why do we want Steve Jobs? Well, because China is facing economic transition. They have to move from cheap labor to knowledge-driven, to innovation-driven. And they don't feel like their system can do it. Like Kai-Fu Lee, who was the Google China president, now retired. He's an immigrant from Taiwan to Tennessee and then went to grad school, I think, Columbia. Then Carlin Manning worked as vice president of Microsoft. So he's a very big technology, innovative person from different places. I think he actually said this publicly. He said at the Davos Summer Forum in China, said the next Google or Apple will emerge, but probably not in China, probably not in 20 years, 25 years, 30 years. Because unless they abandon, abolish, demolish everything, basically, the whole education system. So you have the best education system and the worst education system combined. I mean, if you look at the same thing, the data from in terms of patents, innovations, you got, look at this one, China as a nation, 473 internationally recognized patent filings in 2008, the most recent data available. But China has 20% of the world's population. So by any statistical probability, there should have been more baby Steve Jobs born in China. But what happened to the baby Steve Jobs? That's the question we all need to ask. And most people in China say their education system has stifled them, has killed off those baby Steve Jobs. That's what the summary. And now, this next one, I was going to talk about Singapore, so I'm going to skip that. Okay. The next question is called, why aren't the model minority happy? People always say, who is the model minority? I am the model minority. Standing up here, this actually is a bad term. It's a racist term created in the 1950s to describe the lack, to deny the existence of racism in the US. Because they said at that time, look at the Asian immigrants, the Chinese, the Japanese, and the Koreans. Somehow they all have made it into so-called middle class, upper middle class. They said there's no racism in the US. They're trying to deny that. Okay, so that's a racist term. But now it's continuing to be used. Today, you read Professor Amy Chua's book of the Tiger Mom book. Remember last year? They're trying to put up the Asians as the model minorities again. And as you know from schools, every country, the East Asian minorities at least, do very well academically. Very well. I used to do work on a book called Demystifying the Model Minority Myth. They do very well. Nationally, we have a lot of data to show that NAEP data, longitudinally, Asian as a group do very well than other ethnic groups. I know some schools trying to get Asians to help them boost their test scores so they can beat AYP, to do that stuff. Actually, it's more shocking is that Asian Americans right now is about 5% of the US population.
Wow.
But they take 15 to 25% of Ivy League enrollments. That's very disproportionate, right? You look at Stanford, you have 24%. Berkeley, right nearby, UC Berkeley has 46%. UC Los Angeles, UCLA stands for UC lots of Asians. Well, USC too, right? And that's even higher, right? So think about this percentage. So anybody who look at this data will say that Asians are the model minority academically. I mean, of course, in Australia, you have the same story every place. But a recent data came out to say Asians somehow they do not carry the same excellence in their workspace. They want leadership positions, but they're not put in leadership positions. But 2% of the Fortune 500 companies board membership is taken by Asians, which is low, much lower than what the Ivy League achievement. So naturally, Asians have been talking a lot amongst ourselves in our own little languages. And we try to understand two things. One is that, is there still racism or racial stereotyping? We call that glass ceiling, but of course, as Asians, we don't call glass ceiling, we call it bamboo ceiling. Then the second has to do with education. Is there something wrong with our education? Maybe our education only can go so far, but actually, there may be some damage done. Like East Asian education. That's the question we've been asking. The third big question is, why is America still here? That's not an Al-Qaeda terrorist question. Okay. That's not. It is actually a very genuine question I've been asking from a historical perspective. You hear that every day that American education is getting worse, is on decline. We get worse statistics year after year. You hear it all the time. College Board just put a big advertisement on New York Times. They were crumbling all those things. From historical data, I can tell you, American education is not